Well, good morning to you. We're outside. It's a little chilly out here, but we are talking about spring allergies because if you spend the day fighting seasonal allergies, there's a good chance that your children might develop some of the same symptoms. So joining me this morning is pediatrician Dr. Jamie Friedman. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start. What are some of the signs that your children may have allergies?
Right. So this time of year we see trees, grass, lots of things growing. You drive through San Diego, especially after all the rain we've had, and you're going to see it. And so you might start to notice the watery eyes, the runny nose, sneezing, maybe some throat clearing, itchy throat, coughing sometimes from the post-nasal drip.
Well, so here's the question. How can you tell if it's a cold or if these are just allergies?
That's a really good question, and parents ask that all the time. Allergies are pretty much pervasive during the season. So the runny nose doesn't really change, the itchy eyes, all that stuff. And everything's very watery and very leaky. Whereas with a cold, you're going to have a wave-like pattern. You're going to get a little sick, and as your immune system starts fighting it off, everything gets kind of a little thicker. Your mucus changes a little bit, and then you get more of a cough and kind of peaks and then starts to get better. So if your symptoms are done within about 7 to 10 days, that's probably a cold, especially if there's a fever. There's no fever with allergies.
Interesting, because it happened to me. And for a long time, I was treating something that I thought was a cold. And then suddenly when I finally went to the doctor, they were like, well, let me give you some because I use Claritin. And as soon as I started taking it, so they were allergies.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about medication. Do you suggest giving your children medication if they have these types of symptoms?
I think it depends. It depends on how disruptive it is. Is it bothering their sleep, so they're having a hard time in school? Is it bothering them in school and their teacher's complaining? Do they have bad asthma and it's triggering the asthma? So if it seems to be problematic, maybe it's causing a secondary ear infection or sinus infection, those would be times when you would definitely want to use medication.
Okay, so if you don't want to use medication, are there measures that you can take on that end?
Well, in the home, definitely. So keeping the windows closed so pollen doesn't come into the house. Taking the shoes off. You'd be surprised how much pollen you track through the house or just allergens in general on your shoes. And you can do air purifiers in the home. And some things you can do for your kids is do like everybody talks about now the neti pot, right? Or doing some saline rinse in the nose. That's going to clear out the nasal passages and kind of keep things under control.
So I know that spring has just started for us, but if your child already has these types of symptoms, you want to start treating it immediately, correct?
Right. It can take some time for the medication to really build up and work. Like if you're going to use a nasal spray for nasal congestion, like a nasal steroid or an antihistamine, you want to give it some time to work. So you don't want to get to the point where they're already really bad and uncomfortable or maybe not able to concentrate in school. You want to start early. If you know that you're going to be a spring allergy person, over years, people kind of know, okay, always in the spring, this time of year is bad. So you want to start earlier, maybe even right at the start of symptoms or before symptoms start.
Okay, and then my last question to you is, do allergies ever get to a point where they get so problematic that they can become more serious and become a cold, become a fever, anything like that?
Well, it doesn't really become anything. So viruses and infections are totally different, and the way they function is different. But the physiology in the body, so all that congestion that you get from allergies, can cause a secondary infection. So if you get clogged up behind the ears, you can get an ear infection, or clogged up in the sinuses, you can get a sinus infection. So that can happen.
Okay, so just better to treat it before it starts, hopefully. Oh, yeah. And here's to the spring, right? Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Friedman.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, I'll send it back to you.